Thanks for the celebration. I was the only announcement today, apparently. I'm a little exhausted, and it was very hot yesterday, so if I start to daze off or just stare off for a while, it's not because I'm thinking deeply. It's because my brain is not working right now. 13. Yeah. Which the heat was horrendous, so my brain, is fried a little bit. So Helmut, just come up and shake me a little bit if I zone out here. You know, we've been going through this series called Complete and Whole. Oh, back up there. We can just keep staring at this. I can show you the medal afterwards. Okay, next one. Thank you. Complete and Whole, a series that is all about how God has made you uniquely who you are, but you are not simple. You are complex. He made you multifaceted. Many different pieces to who you are that makes up who you are. And we've been using a verse to guide us throughout this series, one that Jesus said himself. When someone asked Jesus, what's the greatest thing I can do with my life? Okay, what is the number one thing you want from us? What is the number one thing that God wants from us? And this is what Jesus said. He said, this is the number one thing. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And the second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. Now look at this last part. There's no commandment greater than these. There's nothing greater you can do than following these things right here. And what's interesting to me is how God, Jesus himself, tells us that there is different parts of you that you have to bring into alignment, bring into full health to be able to love God. Notice he doesn't just say one part. He's not like, oh man, I just make sure your spirit, right? What does he say? He's like, man, you can put up that first circle there. He says, man, I want you to love God with all your mind, right? All your heart, with all your spirit, with all your body, your strength. And then the second thing, which is like the first, love your neighbors as yourself, right? 5 different areas of health that he says the most important thing. So we've been, for this series, going through every single one, wanting to talk about what does it mean for you to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Because we believe that God created us complex and unique, and when one part of you is unhealthy, it will affect all the rest of you. We've said this many times, but just to remind you, it's a lot more like this, where there's no easy, nice, clean breaks between your spirit and your mind. There's no nice, clean compartments where you can say, oh man, I got my spiritual health really great, but my relationships are a mess. No, they affect each other. They actually bleed into each other. And when Jesus said, he said, I came that you may have life and have it to the full, many of us are missing full life, abundant life. Not because you maybe don't go to church enough, maybe some of us. Not because you don't read your Bible enough. But maybe you're missing the abundant life because one of these areas is so unhealthy, it's bleeding that unhealthiness into every area of your life. And until you deal with that, until you deal with your emotions, your emotional unhealth, until you deal with your relational unhealth, the toxicity that you seem to spread, you're never going to experience a full, abundant life. And that is what Jesus wants for you. That's what we want for you. As a church, man, we want a church full of healthy people who are living full into an abundance. So today, we're finishing off our series, and we're talking about your spirit. Everything up to this point, I feel like we have some sort of comprehension and understanding. You say, like, your body, okay, I get that. I can touch, sense it. My emotions, yep, I feel those every day. My mind, it's a mess. I'm all over the place, right? My relationships, yep, same thing. But your spirit, if I were to ask you to define, what is your spirit? You're like, doesn't God say I have one? I don't know. How do you define it, right? It's hard for us to understand because it's something that the Bible talks about, but it's not something that I can get you under a microscope and find. Doesn't matter. It's not like in the surgery, the doctor is like, oh, there's the spirit. Like, don't cut that, right? It's something you can't see with your own eyes. No matter how much you look, you're not going to be able to see someone's spirit. But you have one. You have something inside of you that you can't see with your physical eyes, but is deeply a part of who you are. The body, the mind, the heart, they're physical realities. But there's a part of you that is purely spiritual, and that's what the Bible calls, what God calls, your spirit. The dictionary defines it like this. A person's spirit is the non-physical inner essence that animates their being, shaping their identity, consciousness, will, and connection to something greater than themselves. And the dictionary even is like, well, it could be God, truth, purpose. Right? The dictionary is very close to the reality. There's a part of you that connects you supernaturally to a whole different world. The spiritual realm. And it's the only way that you can connect with it. If you don't have a spirit, then you can live, you can exist, like many animals do. But if you don't have a spirit, you won't have that same connection with the supernatural, right? God created everything. He interacts with everything. But there's something special about human beings created in his image that we have a spirit inside of us. Right? And the Bible talks about soul, spirit. We're not going to actually go into all the distinctions. There's a lot of debates about is there differences? Is there one? For the sake of simplicity right now, because it's too much to talk about, we're just going to talk about the spirit as this whole idea of the spiritual component of you. And if you want to go deeper, we can talk over coffee sometime about more of those distinctions. But the spirit, I really believe, and I believe what the Bible defines it as, is as the deepest part of who you are, the reality of who you are. Right? It's the opposite of what we think. We think what you can see is more real. But in fact, your body starts to fall apart, starts to get older. Your mind starts to forget things, doesn't work as clearly. Relationships come and go, and even Jesus himself said, marriage isn't forever in heaven. It's not like you're going to continue to even be married. It's not like these relationships last forever the way that they are. But your spirit is forever, right? There'll be renewal. We talked about this with your body last week. You'll be renewal of your body. You'll have a renewed body. But there's a spirit. There's something about your spirit that is always who you are, and it's always the deepest part of who you are. And I believe there's a key to where this all started. If you want to look with me at Genesis 2, verse 7. It says, then the Lord God, this is during creation, he's creating everything. He says he formed a man from the dust of the ground. So he creates a person out of what? Out of the physical things that were already here, that he had already created. He takes the dust of the ground, and from that, he forms the person's body, mind, and all the pieces connecting all of that. Right? Notice that. He makes it out of the earth, the physical. But then something happens, and then he says, and then he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And the man became a living being. I believe before he breathed into him, the heart was functioning, the mind was working, but there's something that happened here when it says God breathed into him. You know, the word breath in Hebrew is the same word as spirit. It's when God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. See, when God created you, you're created through natural, physical means, same way of plants or animals. Right? You have a physical part of you that's created through physical reproduction. And your body is put together piece by piece. It's unique, and God is a part of that process. But there's something that happens to each of us that doesn't happen outside of human beings. I believe God breathes into each one of us a spirit. Each of you have a unique breath from God. Something that is spiritually inside of you, that is unique to you, given to you from God, and that's what the Bible calls your spirit. It's the breath of God. It's animating you. It's moving you. It's as we said, it's the deepest part of who you are. And even more so, it's the part of you that connects directly with God. Right? You can, all the other parts matter and they connect with God. God calls you to honor him with your body. That's what it says, right? It says to guard what you put in your mind. We talked about that the first week. Right? To bring your emotions to him. Our emotions should draw us closer to God. And even our relationships, we're called to treat others the same way that God treats us. But there's something about your spirit that uniquely connects you with God. Look at Proverbs 20. Says, Proverbs 20. Maybe not. Do I not have it on there? No? Oh, okay. Never mind. I do not have it on there. I was kind of zoning out there. That was your moment, Helmut. Proverbs 20, if you want to look up, write down Proverbs 20, verse 27. Says this: the human spirit is the lamp of the Lord that sheds light on one's inmost being. The human spirit is the lamp of the Lord that sheds light on one's inmost being. The scriptures tell us that your spirit is the inmost part of you that allows God to get directly to you. It actually allows God to connect with you in a real and deep way that the other four parts don't do the same thing. There's something about our spirit that allows us to see God, connect with God in a different way. You see, in talking about, last week we talked about how our bodies, how God calls us to keep us free from sexual immorality, and that a couple of the verses we looked at, it says, this is just before what we read last week. It says, do you not know that he who unites himself with a prostitute is one with her in body? For it is said, the two will become one flesh. He's talking about how you don't take it lightly, the fact that you are going and having sex with someone. Because when you do that, your bodies are actually uniting in a specific way. We talked about the holiness of each of our bodies, right? But notice what it says next, on the next verse. Do we not have that either? Do I have any other slides on there? Yes? No? Okay. It's not you. It's probably me. I might not have synced it or something. It says this, verse 17, 1 Corinthians 6, 16 and 17, in case you are taking notes. It says this, verse 17. But whoever is united with the Lord is one with him in spirit. There's something that differently that happens when you connect with God that can't happen in any other relationship, any other person. There's a unity that can happen between two bodies. But it says, man, when you connect with God, there's a oneness that happens in your spirit. There's a difference of how you can connect and unite with the Lord. And here's the thing. Your spirit, I believe, has the strongest influence on who you are. The other pieces matter, and they can influence your spirit. Don't get me wrong. But it's also, our spirit is the least tangible It's the hardest for us to wrap our minds around, our eyes around, our hands around. So we actually downplay it and don't realize how much power it has to affect the rest of our lives. Everything else seems more real. So many times, point number one, your spirit is unhealthy many times. But, we don't got nothing now. But you try to fix it with the wrong solution. This is all we have. I did not ask them to do this, by the way, in case you're all thinking I wanted them to show my picture. And I'm like, hey guys, celebrate me today. No. Do we have point number one? Yeah, I don't know. Point number one. Sorry, I'll stop asking you back there. They're freaking out. What is happening? Point number one, your spirit is unhealthy, but you try to fix it with the wrong solution. Again, your spirit is unhealthy, but you try to fix it with the wrong solution. What I'm saying is, since the spirit is the least recognizable part of you, when it's unhealthy, it bleeds into all the other areas of who you are. We've already talked about this, right? How we're not just little compartmentalized pieces. But you don't recognize that it's your spirit that is unhealthy, so you try to fix everything else. And you go to a doctor because you have these physical symptoms, and the doctor says, I can't find anything wrong with you. Let's try this antibiotic. Let's try this physical therapy. Let's try this. And you can't, and it's like this ongoing problem, and the doctors can't figure it out. Or you have some sort of mental crisis, and you're going to therapists, and they just keep trying, but you keep struggling with the same thing over and over. Many times, we don't deal with the real root, which is a spiritual root. And no matter how hard you try, you're never fixing the real problem because it's your spirit which is unhealthy. You may be unhealthy in some of the other areas too. Yay! But when your spirit, thank you, Chastity, whatever you did. But when your spirit is unhealthy, it's the most difficult to diagnose because we can't see it. Right? When something's wrong with your body, you go to the doctor. When something is going on with your mind, you go to the therapist. When your emotions are all over the place, take some medicine. We deal with all these things in this physical way. But your spirit, how do I diagnose when my spirit is unhealthy? So we try to fix it with all the other areas, never getting to the root of the problem. It's the most difficult because we can't see it, but it's there. God told us He breathed the Spirit into you. That's why you desire something more than just food or sleep or clothing or a house or money. That's why even when you get all those things, it doesn't fill you. There's something more you want. It's because your spirit needs something more. So what does spiritual unhealth look like? Let's start with that so you can diagnose a little bit, if you have some of this. Are you spiritually unhealthy? Let's see. I'm going to show you 3 different ways that I believe that our spirits become unhealthy. The first one is spiritual exhaustion. Spiritual exhaustion. I believe spiritual exhaustion can come in 2 different ways. One is when you're so distant from God, your spirit actually kind of dries up. It's like fruit, right? If you have like a mango. Anybody like mangoes? What happens if that mango sits on your counter for 2 or 3 weeks? It starts to get these little soft spots and starts to rot, right? You can't eat it anymore, right? But if you take that mango and you cut it in strips and you sit it out in the sun or put it in a dehumidifier, what happens to it? Comes these dried strips of mango, right? How long does that last? Long time. If you keep it in a bag, it can probably last for years. Why? You've sucked all the life out of it, right? It's become dry. It's also kind of hard to chew, right? It's not as fresh, but it lasts forever. Many times that's how our spirits are. They become so dried out that we don't even experience the life anymore. Psalm 143 says, "So my spirit grows faint within me, my heart within me is dismayed." Notice it doesn't say your body grows faint. Your spirit can grow faint. It's a little different than when I wanted to quit yesterday while I was in the middle of that run, and it's close to 100 degrees with humidity, and my body was growing faint. But it's saying your spirit can grow faint. That's something totally different. And many times we feel faint, we feel exhausted, and we diagnose it as, oh man, I just didn't get enough sleep, I'm not eating, or I got something going on, you go to the doctor. But is there something else that's happening in you where you're exhausted spiritually? Look at Proverbs 17. It says, "A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones." Look, do you see the effect? A crushed spirit can actually affect your body, is what's happening here, right? It's saying when your spirit becomes so empty and so weak, it starts to make your whole body feel weak. There's this spiritual exhaustion that we can get when we have too much distance from God. He is the source of spiritual life, but many of us take day after day after day away from the Spirit of God. And what happens is your spirit starts to dry up like that piece of mango. It's still there. It's not like it goes away. All of a sudden it's kind of rubbery. Not as tasty anymore. And it feels like all the life has been sucked out. Many of us are experiencing that kind of spiritual life. Our spirits have been exhausted. And the only way to revitalize your spirit is to come close to God. But there's another type of exhaustion. Let me tell you this. There's another type of exhaustion. And it's not from being distant from God. It's from doing too many religious things in order to try to earn something from God. Many times we get exhausted from doing this too. You feel exhausted, so you say, man, okay, I just need to read my verse of the day today, and I need to do a prayer, and I'm going to put some money in that box, like JJ said. And that's, oh, that didn't do it. Okay, 2 verses of the day today, and I'm going to do 2 prayers, and I'm going to do a second offering. Okay, that didn't work. 3 verses of the day. Anybody know this cycle? Where you're on this spiritual treadmill where you keep just doing more and more because you feel empty. But you don't realize you're just doing religious things. There's no presence of God in it. You're just going through the motions, so you never experience His presence, but you just keep doing more and more religious things, and it leaves you spiritually exhausted. And so many times, eventually, you just walk away from everything. Oh, it must be the church. It must be that pastor. He's just always putting up his race photos up there. You know? Never puts up the scriptures. I tried, okay? You become spiritually exhausted, so spiritually exhausted, from either distance from God, where you're just not even doing anything, or you're doing a whole lot of spiritual things without the presence of God. And let me tell you, that was what Jesus combated a lot, this side. He was coming to people that were very religious, who knew and studied and gave so much. But they were distant from God. They didn't actually know God. And believe me, it's very possible for you to be in one of these things too. That's spiritual exhaustion. There's no rest in God in these spaces. The refilling. Here's the second thing that unhealthy spirits can happen. Number 2 is pride in your spirit. Pride in your spirit. Proverbs 16 verse 18 says, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." A haughty spirit, that's a haughty, that word is like when you're like, I'm superior. That's what that means, when you're like arrogant. Better than everyone else. Very similar to pride, that word, we just don't really use it anymore. But a haughty spirit, it means you can have a prideful spirit. That means in your spirit, you think you're better than everyone else. And this is how this unhealthiness starts to happen in you. Because not only do you think you're better than everyone else spiritually, you think you know more than God. You read the Bible, and you're like, oh, God. This is way outdated, bro. Are you talking about sexuality? Well, you need to get up to date. Can we get a version 2.0 on this? I think we need to cut out and repaste some things in here because, God, you are not in 2025 when we're talking about sexuality here. And so what is the root of that? I'm not talking to the rest of the world. I'm talking if you believe Jesus is Lord and you have His Spirit inside of you, if you're saying that and you believe that, that means you have a prideful spirit. Because you know what you're doing? You're saying, God, I know better than you. It is. You're reading God's words and you're saying, God, you kind of like this worked, 50 years ago, maybe 200 years ago, but now I am the modern human being and I have gone above. And so God, this old book, there's some great stuff in here, but there's definitely some stuff that we need to update. And you have this prideful spirit. That's what it is, a prideful spirit where you think you know more than God. Right? Practically, it means you've chosen your own way. You don't really need God. You just like His extra additions in your life. Like maybe some blessings or, I believe some of the stuff He says is good, And you won't even say that, but that's how you live. That's the most important thing, right? Because God doesn't care what you say. He cares how you live. And if there's a part of His words that you're saying, yeah, everything but that, you have a prideful spirit. I'm not saying this to shame you, but you should know it's an unhealthy spirit. It's a part of you that you're saying, you can have everything but that, God. And when you say that, your spirit starts to dry up. It's unhealthy. Here's the third thing. Spiritual exhaustion, pride in your spirit, and sin in your life. 2 Corinthians 7 says, "Dear friends, let us purify ourselves from everything that contaminates body and spirit." Interesting. You see, if you're a believer, if you've accepted Jesus in your life and you continue to sin, what does it say it does to your body and your spirit? Contaminates. It's like a virus, or like a poison. And many times we think, it's okay, I can just take a little bit of this virus into me. I can take a little bit of this poison. Does your body do well with just a little bit of poison? Doesn't matter how little. Like very tiny amount of poison. Maybe you just feel really gross, right? But what if you take a little bit again? Every day, just a little bit of poison. What's going to happen to you? Your body starts to fall apart. And in fact, it says sin contaminates not just your body, your physical being, It contaminates your spirit. And pretty soon you're walking around with so much of this contamination in you that we can't hang out with you without a hazmat suit on. Right? You're like, okay, bro, you are so toxic that if I'm with you, you're going to infect me. Anybody know someone? Oh, I see you're like, oh. Pastor, let's pray. Right? Sometimes we've let sin contaminate us so much that it's broken and dried up our spirit. And that's how our spirit can become unhealthy, is actually sin. And I know sin is not a fun word, like we don't like it. But as I was thinking about this, I think the best way for us to think about sin is really going away from the direction that God created you to be. It's anything that goes in the opposite direction of the way that God created you to be. So when God calls you not to sin, it's not to ruin your party or give you a horrible day. It's because he knows what is best for you. And when you sin, it says it contaminates you. And it's like he's looking down and he's seeing his son or his daughter sick on a bed, and they're not getting better. They're just constantly sick. And if any of you are parents, you know when your child is sick, you feel this just like ache, because you just want to help them. You want to do anything. You take it from them. And that's what God, by the way, feels for you. It says he grieves over your sin. It doesn't say he's angry. It doesn't say he's mad or ashamed of you. It says he grieves. His sadness is that same way he's looking down at his son and daughter. He's like, you're just poisoning yourself. I want anything but that for you. That's the heart of God when he sees your spirit as it's becoming twisted. So what's the answer? You know, many times spiritual unhealth is the root to many things in the rest of our life. Many times to our relational issues, our emotional dysfunction, our mental health problems, even our bodies dysfunctioning, as we just saw. Here's the answer. Number 2, your spirit needs renewal. God doesn't want you to be stuck on that deathbed, unhealthy, contaminated. He wants you to be renewed. That's what the Bible talks about a lot, renewed. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, right? Like a plant. Many of you have that. It's in the corner of your house, and it's not dead, but you can't tell, right? It's just brown and falling over. You're like, this is my plant. Best friend gave it to me. I just want to keep it here, take care of it. It's not going to come back to life unless you do something. Unless something changes for that plant. Unless it gets some renewal. Some water, some sunlight, maybe different soil. And then the plant can experience renewal. In many ways, that is how our spirits are. We are contaminated. We're dried up. We've got so much distance from God that our spirits are not even feeling the life anymore. And this is what Jesus offers to every single one of us in Ezekiel 36, 25 through 27. It says, I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. I will cleanse you from all your impurities and from all your idols. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. See that? I'll give you a new heart, and I'll put a new spirit in you. I'll remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh, and I will put my spirit in you and move you to follow my decrees and be careful to keep my laws. Remember what the spirit is? We talked about this at the beginning. The spirit is the deepest part of who you are. It's the part that's like really you. The reality of who you are. It's not even the physical, it's the spirit. And what does God say he's going to put inside of you? His spirit. The deepest part of who God is. The reality of the Creator God. And he says, man, I'm going to put the most powerful thing inside of you. In many ways, It's like that person who's super sick, when someone gets really sick and they just cannot beat this virus, or their cells are just like continually getting destroyed, the last resort a lot of the times is they will do a blood infusion. And even there's this experimental ways where they'll take the blood and they'll actually inject that blood with like superpowered cells. It's still in this like experimental stage, but so it's a little like risky because they don't know if your body will reject it or not, but it's like the last resort, and they're like, man, it's worth trying because you're not getting better. You just keep getting worse. So they inject this blood into you with like the superpowered cells, and it's like as if someone took like 3 Red Bulls, right? And it's like, whoa, I'm alive, right? Like, and when it works well, someone literally can get better like the next day, right? It just like overwhelms the dying cells, and your body comes back to life. That's what happens when the Spirit of God comes into you. Anybody ever accepted Jesus into your life? You ever remember that first couple days when you were just like feeling the juice of the Holy Spirit? And you were just like, yes, whatever you want, Jesus. All my money, right? I don't need a phone anymore. And I'm going to serve you in whatever country is the poorest. And I'm going to go there right now. And that person is like up front on the, like during the worship service, just here. And everybody else is like, what is happening? Like someone fell in love with Jesus, right? It's infectious. Everybody else is like, okay, I got to start like worshiping Jesus a little more. And that lasts couple weeks, couple months maybe. But what happens after like 6 months or so? I mean, I'm speaking to all of us who know, right? We got a little video showing off right here. You mind if I turn that down? Here, you can watch it. I'm just going to turn it down. There you go. Yep. What happens after a few months is it starts to fade. That Jesus juice, Holy Spirit juice, you're just like, God, I think I need another shot, right? And as a pastor, I meet with people all the time who they ask me, like, hey, I think I'm missing something. Or like, why is it like going away? What happened? Let me tell you, the Spirit inside of you has started to become a little dried up. The first couple weeks, couple months, that passion, you were just in God's presence every day. And you remember when you're like, oh man, I was worshiping God and I didn't want to leave. Remember, anybody ever said that? Yeah, I remember that, Pastor, like 2 or 3, 10, 15 years ago that happened, right? And you're like, man, I remember when God was so real and I was hearing his voice and he was coming to this deepest parts of me, the sin that I didn't even know, and I was like, man, repenting all the time, and I was becoming more in line with God's calling on my life. But then I got kind of busy. And what used to be every day in God's presence became every other day. Yeah, still in God's presence, but I got a lot of things to do for you, God. I got a lot of things to do in this world. And then every other day became every 3 or 4 days, and it wasn't really that deep anymore, right? It was just like, okay, I got a verse of the day. Hurry it up. It's not loading. I guess I'll do it tomorrow. What happens is, when you start to dry up, it just dries up that presence, right? That feeling of God's presence. And spiritual renewal can only happen when the Spirit of God is active in your life every day. If you write anything down, capitals, every day. Because many of us think, oh, once a week, once a month. Every day, you need spiritual life flowing into you. If not, your spirit starts to dry up. Every day you need God coming into you. Look at this, what King David pleaded before God in Psalm 51 right after he committed adultery and murder. Psalm 51, it says, create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew, there's our word, right? Renew a steadfast spirit within me. Steadfast means faithful. I think of it as daily. Give me a daily spirit with you, God. Renew in me a steadfast spirit, a spirit that is constantly seeking you every day. There's something you need from God every day, and it's His presence. In order to have spiritual health, you need that, and that's the only way to combat spiritual exhaustion. That's the only way to combat a prideful spirit. That's the only way to combat sin in your life, is the presence of God every day. I'm not talking about religious things. I'm talking about actually coming before God. You can have His scriptures there, and you say, before you even read, you say, Jesus, speak to me. Allow me to hear your voice. And you just sit before Him, and you allow His presence to wash over you. The only way you can experience it is through your spirit, allowing His Spirit to wash over you. It's a daily renewal that can only happen in His presence. I want to invite you to stand with me. And as we close, I just want to give you an opportunity. As we close this